Hey students, how are you today? We are going to do our second lesson on a look at fossils. And today what you're going to need is your Look at Fossils book. You will also need a pencil, so grab a pencil, an eraser or a bigger eraser if you don't have it. And you are going to need the worksheet that I put in your fossil book. So it looks like this, and we're going to be working on this today. So what we're going to do is we're going to read fossils one more time. Maybe talked about a few inference questions. We talked about that word. That's our vocabulary word yesterday, inference. And then we're going to work on our worksheet pretty quickly today. Okay? The first thing I want you to do is, if you haven't got your book or your pencil or your paper, go ahead and hit pause right now so that you can take your time and go get that, and then come back and turn the video on. All right, go ahead and do that if you need to. All right, now that we're back, I'm going to go ahead and make the screen a little bit smaller so that we can all see the same thing together. Okay. And what I want you to do is I want you to think, what was something that you learned about fossils yesterday? What was something either interesting that you thought was really cool, something you thought was gross, something you thought was that you didn't know before about fossils? So go ahead and put your thinking cap on for a minute and just take a second to think about something you learned, something you're remembering. All right, when I say go ahead and shout out, or not shout out, use a level 1 voice and just say what you learned. The thing that, ready, go. The thing that I learned is that fossils can tell us by looking at their teeth whether they might have been meat eaters or plant eaters, and I thought that was really interesting. Thank you guys for sharing. Your thoughts were great as well. Appreciate that. And let's go ahead and read our book. So the same thing we're going to do as yesterday. We're going to finger point along. So you're going to be finger pointing at the title and at the words as we read, using a whisper voice or a level 1 voice. All right? So we'll start. Our title is A Look at Fossils. And it is written by, the author is Rachel Rice. And did we decide that this was a fiction or a nonfiction book? Do you remember? You're right, it's nonfiction. This is a book of truths, so it's telling us facts, absolutely. All right. The focus question, what are fossils and what can you learn from them? We talked a lot about that last time. All right, page 3, so everybody should be on page 3 in your book. Go ahead and start your finger pointing. You're going to finger point to the first sentence. Fossils are clues about the long ago past. Fossils can form when living things die and are covered quickly. And remember, we talked yesterday in picture 1, it says a dinosaur dies in the mud. So it dies in the mud, and then the dinosaur bones are covered by layers of rock and also soil and dirt and other debris. Okay. Turn to page 4. Finger pointing, whisper reading. Some of the covered dead things turn to stone over time. The stony fossils show details about how living things looked or lived. So in our picture at the top, we see a dinosaur fossil. It looks like this had a ridge on its head. It had very long front legs. Its ribs are very close together as well. And it looks like it might have had a short, or is that the tail? Those might be the hind legs back there. So number 3, our image says dinosaur bones turn into stone. So after all that rock and soil and earth covers the bones, they turn into stone. And then the stone becomes bone fossils and are uncovered over time as we do our research. On page 5, this fossil shows plants. Nice job finger pointing. What details does it show? And we talked about this. It has a very long stem on it. There are branches off the side on each side, and it has very large kind of blossoms with lots of leaves. It looks like there's about 12 or 13 leaves on each blossom. All right, we'll turn to page 6. This fossil shows shells. What details does it show? And one thing I had noticed, and I think you guys did too, was all these lines in the shells and how many there were. There's lots of shells buried here. So this could have been somewhere where perhaps they lived. This was where the shells found food and they died there. And so this was an area where there were a lot of there was a shell community. Page 7. This fossil shows teeth, and those are big teeth. What details does it show? Do you remember what details we talked about this yesterday? What did these long front teeth and these large teeth at the back tell us about this fossil? Go ahead and let me know. You're right. It probably meant that this fossil came from a meat-eating animal. Could have been a dinosaur, it could have been some kind of an other animal, but these sharp front teeth and the big teeth in the back indicate to us that this probably was a meat eater. This fossil shows footprints. What details does it show? So we see these large footprints, and the thing that we were noticing is that they are very deeply set in the ground. So it's like some kind of an animal, maybe a dinosaur, maybe a large elephant, we're not sure, was very heavy. So when it stepped on the ground, it sunk the ground in a little bit and created these fossils. So that tells us that this was a very large and heavy animal. This fossil shows bones. What details does it show? We talked about those long, skinny arms and legs, those long fingers and toes, and that huge rib cage. There was how many? 40. There was 40 ribs altogether. And also, it was curious to me that it had these very big eye sockets. I wonder why it had those. I'm not sure. All right, page 10. I forgot to turn my page in my book. This fossil shows eggs. What details does it show? What do we think? Are these bird or chicken eggs? No, probably not. These probably came from a large animal, maybe a dinosaur of some kind, or a large reptile or lizard. Page 11. This fossil shows poop. What details does it show? Do you remember what poop can tell us? Fossilized poop? It can tell us about the diet of the animal, whether it was a meat eater or a plant eater, a vegetarian. It could tell us the climate of where it lived by looking at what kind of soil or materials were in it. So it can tell us a lot about the animal that lived during this time period. Fossils give people clues about living things from long ago. Remember, it takes a fossil millions of years to become a fossil. So this is a fossil of a fish, and I think we said that those might be shrimp or prawns around it. But these are millions of years old, so they are before humans were ever even on the earth. What clues can you find? Okay. Hopefully on our last lesson, that might have been yesterday or the day before, that you drew a picture of a fossil, you wrote some details about it, and maybe you talked to a family member or someone in your house about something you learned about fossils. So that word that we were focusing on in our last lesson, inference, using what you already know and evidence from the text to read in between the lines and figure out what the author is saying. So let's go back to that picture of the teeth. So the teeth. Did the author specifically say that this was a meat-eating animal? No, he didn't. But we can use this word inference using what we already know and evidence from the text to see that these are really big teeth. They're very sharp. Big teeth in the back for chomping on food. So we can infer that that was a meat-eating animal. That's how we use the word inference. Okay, great. We talked about what causes fossils to form. They are the earth packing down on it over the time. What information can we learn from fossils? We talked about that all through the book. We learned that teeth were from a meat-eating fossil. We learned what the poop can tell us. We learned about the fish and the shells and where their habitat might be. And I was wondering, what fossil from the book did you find the most interesting and why? So that's something that you can think about. Which fossil did you think was most interesting? And our last question was, why did the author write this book? Why did he write this book? Well, he wrote it to tell us about fossils and that we can learn from fossils. All right, so at this point, I want everybody to grab their pencil and their eraser and also their worksheet. We're going to work on this side of our worksheet. Okay, I'm going to move my screen here a little bit. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and write my name up here. And you can all write your name on your paper as well. Okay. And then we're going to start writing in our boxes. So let's look at this first picture. What I know. What do you know about this picture? I'm going to write, I know these are egg fossils. Okay, I know they are egg fossils. Okay, do we know anything else about this picture? They might be millions of years old. Okay, so there's two facts that we know about that picture and those fossils. And we know they're millions of years old because fossils take millions of years to develop. So what can you infer or conclude? What can you infer or conclude? I think, not sure why that's popping up. I think they are from a large animal. Are they from a chicken or a small bird? Probably not. Those were pretty big eggs that we saw in the text. So I can also write, maybe they are from a dinosaur or lizard. Okay. All right, we've filled out our first two boxes. Great job, you guys. So if you need to take a minute to fill those out, that is absolutely fine. You can hit pause on the video and go ahead and fill those out. So you can do that right now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep talking and moving on to the next one. But if you need to hit pause, that is completely fine. Go ahead and do that. And we're going to start on our next one. So let's look at this picture. What is this a fossil of? And what do we know? This is a fossil of a, you're right, it's a footprint. What else do we know about this fossil? That's right, we talked about it. It came, actually we're going to write the fossil probably came from a large animal. Okay, great, we know. But do we know that it came from a large animal? Do we absolutely know that? Or do we just know that it's the fossil of a footprint? Exactly. We don't absolutely know, but we can infer or conclude that it came from a large animal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that information and put it in our infer and conclude. The fossil probably came from a large animal, because that's something we don't actually know the answer to yet. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to delete that. You could erase it if you put it in there. And so we know this fossil is a footprint. We know that. That is a fact. What do we not know, but we can infer from the text? It probably came from a large animal. All right, great job. If you need to keep writing those, you can. I'll move my head here a little bit so that you can get on there. Also, if you need, you can always pause the video and catch up. Okay, that's totally fine as well. All right. For our next one, let's look at this. This is a picture. What do we know? What do I know about this? I want you to put on your thinking cap. What is something you know about this fossil? Something I know it has sharp teeth. All right, I know it has sharp teeth. What else do we know about this? Let's look at it. There's the sharp teeth. Ooh, it has a long jaw. Wondering, is that a nose? That is a very big nostril. This fossil has a large nostril. Okay. Is this a human? Is this an animal? Is this a bird? It's probably an animal. I'm pretty sure, I think I know that this is some kind of animal. So there's 3 things I already know about that fossil. All right. So in this column, we are going to try and answer this, what I infer or conclude. What do we think we can infer or conclude? Well, I think this might have been a predator that eats meat. How do I know that? How would I know that that might be a predator that eats meat? Well, let's go look at its mouth. Look at those sharp, sharp teeth in there. The sharp teeth tell me that. So that's what we know or confer. Awesome. If you need to pause at any time to catch up on your writing, go ahead and pause. I know I'm typing fast. All right, we have one more animal. Or one more fossil, I should say. Not an animal, a fossil. All right. Move my box here. All right. What do I know? So let's look at this picture. We're looking at that picture. What do I know? I see that it has a kind of a pointy head. It looks like it's got 4 fingers and toes. It has a very long back and a tight rib cage. And kind of looks like it might be a small type of animal. So I'm going to write, this is from a small creature. It has 4 fingers and toes on each limb. And then limbs, your arms are a limb and your legs are a limb. And this fossil also has a pointy head. Now we're going to think about what we can infer. And I'm going to go back to our inference one more time, using what we already know and evidence from the text, which can be the picture, to read between the lines and figure out what the author is saying or what he's asking us. So, what do you think about this last picture? We're almost done here. What do you think about that? Oh, those are great ideas. I think this is a lizard. Kind of looks like a lizard to me. I don't see that, well, I can't see its teeth, but if it's a lizard, it might eat bugs or plants. It It's a very small body, so it might be able to protect itself in rocks or plants or crevices. There's lots of things that we can infer. You can go ahead and write one of your ideas down. I'm going to write, I think it might eat bugs and plants. And there's lots of things that you can conclude about that. All right, that is it for our lesson today. Remember, if you did not write all this down, I will shrink myself here. You can push pause and finish filling out your sheet, which I did here on the computer in type. And that is it for fossils. We'll start a new book next time. So keep up the good work, you guys. I know this lesson was a little bit long, but you guys did great. I hope you learned something from fossils. And have a great day. I'll see you next time. All right, adios.